NUS. You're sitting at a school meeting. Around you are sweaters without pilling, smiles without wrinkles, and a school bus waiting outside. The lawn across the street looks picture perfect. Then Mr. Henderson slumps into his chair. His face is ashen, his breath a mere thread, his pupils pinpricks. You think, heart attack? Stress? No. It's the first pill, oxycodone. After a wisdom tooth extraction, the doctor prescribed it. His mother put it in the medicine cabinet. His son took it, just to try. And now he's collapsing. In a house with 2 cars and an MBA. In a suburb where everything is under control. Do you recognize that feeling? When everything is perfect, and then suddenly it crumbles? Imagine teenagers from families earning over $100,000 a year use opioids twice as often as their peers from the poorest neighborhoods. Yes, you heard that right. Poverty here isn't the cause, it's a shield. Because in poor areas, prescription painkillers are almost non-existent. But in your neighborhoods, they sit next to the vitamins. You trust your doctor, your school, the system. And that is your vulnerability. For years, pharmaceutical companies poured millions into advertising. Safe. Non-addictive. For your pain. In reality, they turned pain into a commodity. Your pain, your trust, your fear, all of it a market. Are your palms sweating now? Is your heart racing? Good. Because this isn't happening somewhere else. It's right outside your fence, in the house with the manicured lawn, with the bus, with the silence. A silence broken only by the sound of a body falling. And you still think this doesn't concern you, doctor? Allison Reed remembers her hand trembling when she signed her first oxycodone prescription. It was 2003. The patient was a 40-year-old carpenter with eyes that hadn't seen sleep for 6 months. He wasn't asking for a high. He was asking simply to lie down without screaming in pain. And she trusted the protocols, the ones on her desk, with the medical association's seal. Those very protocols written not by scientists, but by marketers from Purdue Pharma. Have you seen this? Has your family doctor ever prescribed something stronger, and then remained silent when you asked for more? In 1996, the Centers for Disease Control issued recommendations that became a death sentence for hundreds of thousands. It stated, opioids are safe for chronic pain. But there were no studies, no evidence. Instead, millions of dollars from lobbyists. Purdue Pharma didn't spend on advertising. It bought trust. Conferences, grants, textbooks, even lectures for medical students, all to instill one phrase: addiction is a myth. But in reality, internal documents, later exposed, showed Purdue managers referred to patients as potential addicts, not people, not sick. A market. $35 billion. That's how much Purdue earned from OxyContin alone in 20 years. Imagine one pill costs 30 cents to produce, sells for $30, a 900% margin. And your pain, their business plan. Do you know that feeling? When you're handed a solution, but in reality you're given a lock? The key to it is in the hands of the pharmaceutical company. And you're just the next prescription in the system. And this is where it gets interesting. It wasn't drug dealers who brought opioids to your suburb. They were brought by people in white coats, with a smile, with a diploma, with a seal, and with your complete trust. Who put those protocols on Dr. Reed's desk? Who convinced the school dentist that oxycodone was normal after a wisdom tooth extraction? Not an evil genius, not a conspiracy, just a machine. Cold, calculating, profitable. And you still think that first pill was a personal mistake? No, it was the first click in a chain designed not for healing, but for sales. Pain became a commodity, and you, the customer, without even knowing it. School dentist Dr. Larson didn't even think twice. 15 years old, wisdom tooth, 30 oxycodone pills. It's normal, he told the mother. And she believed him, just as you would believe him. Her son took 2 as prescribed. A week later, the pills ran out. The pain did not, but his brain already knew the taste of relief, and it started to demand more. 18 months later, Sarah M. found him in the bathroom. Lips blue, phone in hand, on the screen, M30, $10. The first pill, from a doctor in a white coat, the last, from a guy in a hoodie. And between them, only routine, only trust, and the phrase, "It's normal." Have you seen this? Has your school dentist ever prescribed so he wouldn't suffer? Purdue Pharma didn't kick down doors. It brought lunches. At expensive restaurants, with wine, with smiles. Their medical advisors didn't talk about addiction. They talked about quality of life. And in reality, they sold the illusion of control. Dentists became the main gateway. After all, tooth pain is temporary, which means it's safe. But the brain doesn't read instructions. It learns, especially a teenage brain. It forms addiction 3 to 5 times faster. Neuroplasticity, not a gift. It's a trap. In 2001, Purdue spent $60 million, not on advertising, on direct access to your doctor, on pens, on notebooks, on educational dinners. In their reports, you are not a patient. You are a potential addict. Because addiction means repeat business. It's a market with predictable demand. By 2010 in West Virginia, there were 67 pills per person per year. More than people. More than meaning. Do you know that feeling? When the pain isn't in the body, but in the emptiness between work, church, and a neighbor who no longer knows your name. Then even a pill for a toothache becomes an anchor, even if that anchor pulls you to the bottom. Look here, this isn't about weakness. It's about a system that turned trust into fuel, and your pain into a subscription. Do you still think this started on the street? No, it started in an office, with a prescription, with a phrase you've heard yourself, "It's normal." Jim woke up at 5 in the morning, as always. Only now, outside the window, there were no shift whistles, but silence. The factory moved to Mexico in 2008. The church closed in 2015. Not enough parishioners. And the neighbors? They just disappeared. One day, the doctor prescribed him oxycodone after he fell off the porch. First for a week, then for another, then without a prescription. Because the pharmacy knew he would pay. And at home, no one to ask, "Are you okay?" This isn't a fall. It's a disappearance. Do you know that loneliness? When you're in the middle of the street, but it's as if you're not there? When work gave you a name, church, a community, and children, meaning, and now only back pain and a pill that gives 6 hours of warmth. Warmth that disappears, leaving an emptiness twice as deep. Economists from Princeton called it deaths of despair. It's not poverty that kills, it's the lack of connection that kills. When a person stops being part of something, they seek solace in something that at least isn't silent, even if that something is a chemical. Especially where unemployment has risen by 40% since 2000, and where 60% of churches no longer ring their bells. Look here, in counties where more than half of churches and factories closed in 20 years, opioid mortality is 3 times higher. 3 times. This isn't statistics. This is law. Addiction isn't just in the brain. It's in the empty park, in the boarded-up church, in the message, "Mom, I'm leaving," and in the answer that never came. Is your heart beating slower now? Good. Because you feel it, even if you don't use, even if everything is fine with you. The pill was an anchor, but an anchor doesn't keep you by the shore. It pulls you to the bottom. And the quieter the fall, the less chance anyone will notice. And then prescription pills became expensive or unavailable, and people didn't stop looking for relief. They just opened another app, where they sell more than just pizza, where one dose of fentanyl isn't addiction, it's death. And it comes with a notification. Delivery in 15 minutes. Does this seem distant to you? Look at your phone. How many apps do you open without thinking? Now imagine, one of them is the last. This isn't about weakness. This is about what happens when everything that made you human disappears, and only pain remains, and false warmth, and silence, which is louder than a scream. He's 17. He's not an addict. He just couldn't take it anymore. A friend sends a Snapchat, a white pill with M30. It's like oxycodone, but $10. He swallows it. 5 minutes later, his chest tightens like a vice. Pupils, pinpricks. Breathing, a thread. 10 minutes later, his mother finds him on the floor. He thought it was medicine. It was a bullet. White, round. Kills faster than you can dial 911. Have you seen this? Has your child ever asked just to calm down? After 2010, oxycodone prescriptions were sharply curtailed. Prescriptions under lock and key, pharmacies under surveillance. But the pain didn't disappear. And the market, it did. Fentanyl came to replace it. Hundreds of times stronger than morphine. Hundreds of times cheaper to produce. And it sold like pizza, a photo on Snapchat, payment via Venmo, delivery in 20 minutes. Don't you believe it? Look at your teenager's screen. How many friends do you not know? Since 2013, overdose deaths have skyrocketed by 500%. 70% fentanyl, not heroin, not cocaine. Fentanyl. In a pill that looks like medicine. In a powder that looks like sugar. In a capsule that looks like a vitamin. Do you know that feeling? When you think, this isn't our neighborhood, and then you see an M30 in your son's palm. One pill kills in 5 minutes. 5 minutes less than it takes to brew tea. 90% of these pills are not oxycodone. They are 90% fentanyl. One tiny speck and breathing stops. Forever. Teenagers buy them because they look real, because everyone's tried them, because it's not like it's from the street. But this isn't medicine. It's a weapon of mass destruction in the guise of help. And it costs $10. Cheaper than a movie ticket. Cheaper than pain. Are your palms damp now? Is your heart beating faster? Good. That means you haven't gotten used to it yet. And yet, families remain silent. They are ashamed to say, the doctor started it, and fentanyl finished it. Death certificates state natural causes or undetermined. But silence isn't a shield, it's fuel. While you remain silent, the next pill is already on its way. Via Snapchat. To a house with a lawn. To a child who just wanted to stop feeling. Look here, this isn't an epidemic. It's a delivery system. And you're in the coverage area. Sarah M. still doesn't open her son's bedroom door. 3 years of dust on the nightstand. A cold vial in his pocket, the very one for oxycodone. Prescribed by the school dentist. And in his jeans, an M30. White, round, deadly. At the funeral, neighbors whispered, "Heart." She nodded. Because in their world, addiction isn't a disease. It's a shame. To admit the truth means losing not only her son, but also the right to be heard. Do you know that silence? When tears dry before they fall. Official statistics are a mirror distorted by shame. The coroner sees clean clothes, an address in an A+ rated neighborhood, and writes, respiratory arrest, cause unclear. Not out of malice, out of weariness. From a church pew, from an empty budget. A toxicology analysis costs $1,200. And in 42% of cases in the county, it's not performed. Have you seen this? How the system doesn't notice what everyone hides. In one of Ohio's most affluent counties, average income $112,000. School in the top 10. Officially, 12 overdose deaths in 2022. Actually, 27. Why? Because families with 2 garages don't want their names in the records. Shame is stronger than fear, and pain is deeper than the lawn. Look here, the crisis isn't in the slums. It's in bedrooms where an empty vial lies next to an honors diploma. It's in school nurses' offices, where a prescription is faster than a conversation. It's in protocols written in 1996, and still in effect. But even if everyone spoke up, what would change? Because most suburbs don't have a single clinic, not a single doctor who prescribes life-saving medications, not a single phone number for 3 in the morning. When fear grips your throat like a vice, do you know that feeling? When help isn't unavailable. It simply doesn't exist. What's louder, the dust on the nightstand or a scream? As long as you remain silent, there will be no answer. And the next pill is already on its way. The Carters drove for 3 days through mountain switchbacks, calling, pleading, searching. 47 clinics, 100 miles, 6 months on a waiting list. Their son trembled as if he'd been pulled from an icy river. "I don't want to die," he said. And the system replied, "No, no room, no insurance, no doctor. Have you seen this? When help isn't yes, but no, no, no." Since 2017, the federal government has allocated $8 billion to combat opioids. 73% went to Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, to university centers, to private foundations, to conference rooms with coffee breaks, and in West Virginia, where overdose mortality is twice as high, only pennies remained. No school programs, no psychologists, 1 for every 1,200 children, no courses for family doctors, and most importantly, no medications that actually save lives. Because to prescribe buprenorphine, a doctor had to be certified. An X waiver, a piece of paper that cost lives. It was abolished only in 2023, 20 years into the crisis, after hundreds of thousands of deaths. Do you know that feeling? When salvation exists, but not for you? 60% of U.S. counties, 1,943 out of 3,143, do not have a single doctor who can prescribe this medication. 60%. This isn't statistics. This is a verdict. If you're not in Chicago, you're invisible. If your town is a boarded-up factory and a church with extinguished candles, you're not a priority. Help exists, but only if you can leave. And if you don't have a car, if you don't have gas, if you're just a person who was once given a pill for a toothache and now you're falling, then the system says, you don't matter. And this invisibility kills, quieter than a gunshot, but just as surely. Look here. Your neighborhood isn't an empty space on the map. It's a zone that has been erased from the rescue plan. But dealers? They haven't. They come first. Because despair is demand. And demand is a market. And the market is always faster than the state. Are your palms clenched now? Good. This isn't fear. It's anger. And it's the only chance you have left. Jim Wheeler once welded steel. Now he welds doses. 23 years at the factory. A house with a porch. Kids in school logo shirts. And then a letter. Production is moving. A year later, his wife left. 2 years later, his spine broke under boxes in the warehouse. The doctor prescribed oxycodone with a smile, with a seal, with the phrase, FDA approved. And in 2016, prescriptions disappeared. The pain did not. Then Jim went behind the church, where a baseball batting cage used to be. First he bought, then he sold. Today, he is the fentanyl supplier in his neighborhood. He's not a monster. He's a former steelworker. And in this lies the entire American tragedy. A man who built the country is now trading in its death, not out of greed, out of despair. Have you seen this? Your neighbor once fixed roads. Now he's silent behind a closed door. Do you know that feeling? When work didn't give you money but the right to call yourself a person. Post-industrial decline didn't just kill factories. It killed meaning. Church, baseball team, teacher meetings. All of these were threads in the fabric. And when the fabric tears, only emptiness remains. And pain. Physical pain can be endured. Emotional pain cannot. That's why the brain clings to dopamine, the same one that gives love, success, hugs. But love takes time. And a pill, 10 seconds, and 20 minutes of warmth. Illusory, deadly. But warmth. Do you know this? When you choose not, I want to get high, but I want to stop feeling. In some areas of Kentucky, fentanyl is the new currency. It's accepted instead of payment for utilities. Given as birthday gifts. Sold by teenagers via Snapchat. M30, $10, one pill, and breathing stops. But demand grows. Because despair is the most predictable market. The government left, banks left, jobs left. Only pain remained, and the one who sells it. Have you seen this? Is someone in your neighborhood already accepting fentanyl instead of a check? Fentanyl isn't a drug, it's an economy, where labor is no longer valued, but pain is always in demand. Where a former steelworker becomes a dealer, not because he gave up, but because it's the only way to stay afloat. Are your hands trembling now? Good. This isn't fear. It's understanding. Addiction isn't weakness. It's the price of decline. Paid not with money, but with lives. Look here. Behind every addict, there's a story that the system chose not to hear. But the market, it heard, and offered a solution for $10. Do you know that silence? When the lawn is mowed, the car is clean, but inside an emptiness that even tears can't fill? This isn't an accident. This is a system. Pharmaceutical companies poured billions for years to turn your pain into profit. Doctors prescribed 250 million prescriptions, not out of malice, but out of trust, in lies packaged in white coats. And then, when the factories left, the churches closed, and neighbors stopped greeting each other, the pill became the only reminder. You still feel, until you didn't anymore. Have you seen this? How M30 comes not from the street, but through Snapchat. How fentanyl kills in 5 minutes, faster than you can boil water for tea. And families remain silent. Because in their world, addiction is a shame, not a disease. And then death is recorded as respiratory arrest, not out of cruelty, out of shame. But Sarah M. is no longer silent. Every Wednesday, under the ceiling of old lamps in the library basement, she pours tea into paper cups. No speeches, no placards, only voices. One mother says how her daughter died with her baby in her arms, oxycodone in breast milk, fentanyl in her blood. A father whispers how his son bought a calming pill for $10, a white pill with M30 that erased him from the face of the earth. And Sarah clutches an empty vial in her pocket. And for the first time in years, she understands, her pain isn't a sentence. Her pain is the beginning of a conversation. Do you know that feeling? When you stop being a victim and become a voice. We treated the body, but we didn't see the soul. Despair isn't cured by a pill. It heals in a circle, in conversation, in work that gives a name, in a community where you are known not by your lawn, but by your eyes. Until we understand, people don't just need pain relief, they need to be needed. The crisis will return, in new forms, in new homes, in new M30s that look like medicine but work like a bullet. Because the market feels the emptiness, and society must fill it, not with silence, but with life. Are your palms hot now? Is your heart beating to a rhythm you haven't heard in a long time? Good. This isn't the end. This is an awakening. And now the question to you, not as a spectator, but as a neighbor, a friend, a parent. Is this a failure of medicine or a failure of society? Did doctors become tools? Or did we ourselves allow pain to become a commodity because we stopped asking each other, "Are you okay?" Right? Medicine or society? Your voice isn't a comment. Your voice is the first thread in a new fabric, one that can hold the next son, the next daughter, maybe even yours. Look here. Behind every lawn, a person. Behind every M30, a story. Behind every silence, a chance to speak. And that chance doesn't start tomorrow. It starts now, with one word.